Well, thank you all for being here. I'm going to start by asking people not at the table if there's anybody in the room that has never participated in Global Entrepreneurship Week, GW, or isn't involved in it. If you could put up your hand, it'd be useful to know because we got, okay. So we have one person, two persons, three persons, okay. Wonderful. All right. Well, more behind me. Good. So I say that because this is a meeting today of some of the people that are driving Global Entrepreneurship Week in their countries or communities. And but one of the things we are always wanting to do is to welcome new organizers into Global Entrepreneurship Week. And so we hope that we're very grateful for you coming and participating. And we hope that you'll ask anybody who didn't put their hand up questions afterwards about what it's like, what they're doing, and you'll consider getting involved in this glorious campaign. So let me give you a little bit of context just for those people and as a reminder to everybody else. As I said to someone earlier today, Global Entrepreneurship Week is where we began. We started with this idea that Silicon Valley, as Americans, Silicon Valley should not have a monopoly on entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And so why was it that people who wanted to do entrepreneurship kept coming to the United States and kept coming to the United States and kept going to Silicon Valley? Why weren't we building and growing entrepreneurial communities, this was 15 or 20 years ago, in other parts of the world? And so we embarked upon Global Entrepreneurship Week as a way to introduce entrepreneurship and the confidence to do it to more parts of the world that currently were not really enjoying what we felt was about figuring out new ways of doing things, forming new companies, not just about what their politicians would say, which was, oh, we've got to support small business. Small business is the engine of economic growth, and we always know that was there. But we wanted to focus on what does it take to get a culture like we had in the United States embedded into all nations in the world. So that's what it started with. It was a campaign. It still is a campaign, but it's one that really has become a wonderful collection of communities. Let me begin by emphasizing the most important thing about Global Entrepreneurship Week. And I'm not going to make you stand up, those of you around the table, but the image that I always like to convey to people is I'd like you to stand up so you can just picture yourself doing this. I want you to not face each other. I want you to face outside of this round table. You are all on a team, and your job is to look out into your communities and cities and find people who have no idea about the wonderful world of entrepreneurship. They think maybe it's just all about big companies, marketing, sales, profits. They don't understand that actually it's about finding new ways of doing things, improving the lives of your community and fellow citizens, building out a path for yourself, solving problems, all the things you've heard us talk about on big stages, the reasons why we do entrepreneurship. And so the main thing that I always like to emphasize about Global Entrepreneurship Week is that it's not designed, not targeted to those of us who are already converted to the value of entrepreneurship to our societies. It's designed for those of us who believe in it to come together to form a committee that's going to celebrate it in our communities and to try to go out and get other interested citizens of our communities from all backgrounds to come and gently kick the tires, join an event, find something going on that allows them to say, hey, maybe just I might at some point in my life want to do this. And I like to really emphasize that because sometimes people talk to me about Global Entrepreneurship Week and say, oh yeah, it's where we all get together. Those of us in the ecosystem, and we have a great time and we bring together all of our ecosystem organizations. Getting together is great, but it should be getting together with a mission to reach the rest of the community. So I get thrilled when I hear about people. We have at least one story of someone that showed up and said, yeah, didn't fit my value system, the idea of becoming an entrepreneur. I felt like those are the business people who pollute the planet and exploit the poor, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to do that stuff. But then realized it was actually a creative social exercise of forming teams, testing ideas, iterating, etc., and doing things for other people. And that one example went on to sell a company to Google. So, I think it's rewarding for us all if we can help even just one person in our community. I often say, especially with young people, our mission is to light some candles in the hearts and minds of fellow citizens and say, this is really a profound calling. It's not just about creating a profitable company. So with that as an opening, I want to just begin and just say thank you for all of those that endeavor to do this. We wanted to just talk today in a sharing way around some of the things that are working, and if you wish to share them, some of the things that are not working in terms of what you're doing to build a great campaign in your community. Some of you run Global Entrepreneurship Week nationally. Some of you are running it locally. So some of you are just got a much smaller geographic jurisdiction. But I'm going to direct you to the screen where I'm just going to remind you, I don't have to give you a briefing on what Global Entrepreneurship Week is, but I do want to remind you about some of the things we think are critical to a successful campaign. So if you're running Global Entrepreneurship Week, what is it that you are supposed to be doing? Well, a great campaign looks like this. So paint me a picture of a great campaign. It reaches, engages all parts of the country. It's got larger number of events that people can show up and learn about what entrepreneurs do, run by a large number of partners. It's not you putting together one event, okay? It's not, oh, I'm doing GW, I've got an event on Friday. It's you organizing other people to do events. Have a select number of high-profile events, so something which gets some attention for entrepreneurship and the wonderful people in your community who are embarking on this effort. Ideally, in that attention, you've got some big brands, either people or individuals. And finally, that it's done in a way that allows you to collaborate with other people. We are sometimes saying internally here, other people working under the compass, people who are running another Gen program. Pretty here is you'll meet her in one of her Startup Huddle sessions. So, for example, she's got a program and she's got local organizers in your countries that are doing the Startup Huddle program. If Matt and Tom were here, you'd find that we've got relationships with some of the government and policymakers and researchers in your country. So there are other people that are working with Gen, and we want to make sure that when you do a campaign, that you take advantage of all of the people that we've spent time, shall I say, engaging with about entrepreneurship in different levels. So some of the other factors, we like individual organizations that host Global Entrepreneurship Week tend to be institutions rather than an individual. And the reason for that is because things happen to us as individuals. And we need to have sustainability of a campaign that grows over a period of time. And sometimes that means if people change jobs or things happen personally, or we try to look for that sort of institutional support. Sometimes the organizations that drive Global Entrepreneurship Week are a government. For example, in Germany, they've supported GW for 13 or 14 years. They funded at the level of $1 million a year or more. And it's been funded by the Ministry of the Economy all those years. Other places, it's put together by a collection of universities, sometimes trading the role of leading on the campaign each year and sort of keeping each other competitive, each other. Especially universities compete. They try to say, well, you know what? Stanford did this last year. We're going to one-up them next year and have an even bigger this, that, and the other. So certainly, and then sometimes it's obviously entrepreneurial support organizations. And really the kind of organizations in your countries that really do well with Global Entrepreneurship Week are the ones that are already active in the ecosystem, already well connected in the ecosystem, and can therefore know which partners to talk to that will be interested in catalyzing and working together in hosting activities for the public at large. And obviously, it's organizations that tend to have some access to some kind of fundings or internal resources that allow you to keep it sustainable over a period of time. These are some examples of some of those. In some countries, we have active JA chapters. Endeavor, an organization well known in this part of the world, leads Entrepreneurship Week in some countries. Obviously, there's government agencies like the equivalent of SBA, of course, in Brazil, as we all know, is SEBRAE. They often have an amazing size campaign because they literally turn around to every one of those 650 offices and say, they give them a roadmap, say, here's what you're going to do in the community this week. So there is a little bit of top-down. I mentioned the government of Germany before, and there's a few other examples of organizations there that give you an idea. So for some of you who've been doing GW for a long time, and I'm looking over here, Ivan, at you, we've got a lot of friends here. He doesn't mind. Somebody else might be offended that I'm commenting on their age, but Ivan and I are close. So the point is, but for some of you doing it a long time, I still don't think it's a bad thing to refresh and remind ourselves as to what is our role in driving that campaign locally. And so as we kick this summit off, we thought that would be important to emphasize. As I said before, it's about running a national campaign. It's not about organizing an event. It's about encouraging other organizations to hold events and competitions. And it's about broadly getting as many people as possible and as many organizations to join you in co-hosting the campaign to the public at large. So the idea is that everybody who's involved in entrepreneurship, some of you that fight like crazy in competing for people, resources, and other things, and being the leader in this role or that role in your ecosystem on a day-to-day basis, this is one time of the year where you can come together and say, let's do something together for everybody else. And the benefit and the incentive and motivation for them to do it is that what you're ultimately doing is that if you run, and I'm looking at people, Stephen, you run entrepreneurship education programs with the universities, for example. I'm looking at everyone, I can pick something. But what we're trying to do is drive traffic into your program. So when you go to others and say, if you get involved in Global Entrepreneurship Week, the more people we get involved in the campaign, the more people who sign up, attend an event, participate, that's a new number of people that, by the way, we all collectively have access to their data, and we can get in touch and say, would you like to come and participate in that, afterwards? So part of the incentive for other organizations to work with you as opposed to fight with you in your ecosystem is that you're going to help them bring in more of the community to their activities. Again, just to mention, we call it don't organize, catalyze. So I'm going to say that. I've said that 3 times now. So many people running the campaign think the role of our organization is to organize an event during Global Entrepreneurship. It's not. Your job is to get other people to do it. And then your job is actually to be the conduit of this campaign and what's happening in your country to the rest of the world. And I will say some of you fall down on this front, so we're going to stress on it, not because of any other reason than you're busy, so it's not a personal criticism, but definitely giving us information and allowing the world to see what's going on in entrepreneurship through your website. We don't ask for a report. We don't ask you to do brochures. We just say report what you can through your website, and that's a way for you to tell people what's going on in the campaign. So the responsibilities are, again, to manage the campaign, to make sure that you're utilizing the branding because we are trying to be one global ecosystem together, and then to conduct some of these communications efforts that we say in terms of, again, if you're trying to reach a wider public audience, of course, the way to do that is the reason that you need to have effective media and communications work. And then, as I mentioned already, collecting the metrics, doing the evaluation. I want to stress this is something we ask you to only use the website for people registering events or participating in the campaign. And part of the reason for that is that every time people are using your website, that is building a database. It's amazing the number of you. You know, for example, there was one country that remained nameless that decided to use a different website for their campaign. And they were shocked to find out that actually they've got thousands of people from their country who are in their database on our website. Because one of the things you do as a result of the campaign is you collect information on partners and individuals and so forth through the website that can be used throughout the year afterwards. So the idea is you get, and that you can follow up. So that's your database. You're building it for your country and for your community. So it's not open to the public, obviously for data privacy reasons, but as the host of the campaign, this is a database that we're building with you. And we want to work to use that to do other things with you for entrepreneurs and the ecosystem in the future. So it's really important to make sure that you know that you're using the website for this campaign. And, you know, while one country is allowed not to for reasons that I can always explain to people, you know, generally speaking, you know, we require that on the campaign. And by the way, long term, it's in your interest. Sometimes short term, it's not, because a lot of people say, oh, I'd much rather use my little WordPress site that I'm familiar with using. And yes, that short term is going to be a lot easier. But long term, getting to know the Gen platform, working with our customer service team if you don't know it, or having students or volunteers or people that you want to have do the website for you is extraordinarily important. So that's really it. And maybe one thing to just finalize and emphasize as we go through, if I could, is of all people that are GW campaign hosts, we require you to have a debrief call within 21 days or 14 to 21 days. That's a 30-minute minimum conversation that just says, hey, tell me in your own words what happened. How did it go? What worked? What didn't work? You know, did we capture stuff? Where can we get more information? And we also ask you to complete a survey. We haven't emphasized that enough, so we sort of started sending that message. And I know that Gary and Cecilia want to make sure that any of you doing campaigns, that you've actually scheduled that meeting months in advance with them. So you know that on November 23rd, or whatever the date is, you're going to spend 30 minutes with us, and we're just going to pick your brains. We're just going to interview. How did it go? What happened? So, Sean, you're going to do that with us? Can we do that?
Absolutely.
All right. Fantastic. All right. So that's really the highlights. And then I'm going to wrap up with just this, which is a listing, because I want to go through and ask some of you to comment on how you do some of this, because you really need to learn from each other. When we first began GW, we had the GC, and we would hold a GW event, and we would put you in a room for 8 hours because no one was doing campaigns. And so we felt like, well, we've got to start somewhere. So we would actually tell you how we think you should run the campaign. Well, we don't want to be doing that. Of course, we want you to learn from each other, and we want you to tell us the best way to run a campaign. But we will say these are the things over 12 years of looking at this model and working out what people have done that are really well. This is what we've learned. So we'd like to tell it back to you as a kick point to say, which of these areas would you like to talk about in the summit today and share your story with? So you can read, but I'll quickly go through them. We like to make sure that the campaign, make sure that it appeals to a wide audience. Again, sometimes people end up just targeting the small businesses in their community, and it's not targeted at them. It's targeted for them to join you and then go to all the other people who you don't think currently understand the joy and amazing world of entrepreneurship. The second factor, they taught us this in Turkey. I love this. Always have a planning committee and put it together within the first quarter or half of the year. You know, I used to go to the one in Turkey, and I went to the planning committee. It was so exciting because they would tell me, you know what, for the rest of the year, we fight. Like, with 4 universities at the table, and they said, yeah, we can always come to the planning committee. We plan for GW, but we compete like heck in every element of the ecosystem when we're not doing this campaign together. The planning committee should be saying, what are we going to do, but also what are we not going to have time to do? Sometimes people just say, you know what, this year we've got so many other priorities. We've got a new president coming in. We don't know what they want to do or whatever it is. And they turn around and say, you know, we're going to be on the planning committee, but don't expect anything of us. So planning sometimes means communicating what's realistic. Making sure you've got credible partners that help you reach target communities. I don't have to spell this out for you, but most of us don't know how to talk to every type of person in our community, in our country, whether it's demographics, whether it's other cultural factors or things. We all live in very diverse societies. So work with the people who do know how to talk to certain parts of your society that you, frankly, are not maybe such a good communicator with. So be sure to reach out, and we can talk more about that. Great examples. Then be sure to leverage the existing communities. So, for example, we already have communities at Gen, but you've already, more importantly, got communities. So be sure to leverage the communities that you've already got. Recruit celebrities. We always say that. It's very, very hard to do, but it's amazing how many people manage to find somebody who knows somebody who says, I'm willing to do it. For example, when we went to Virgin Media and we got Richard Branson to participate, we didn't ask them for any money. We just asked him to join us from a social media perspective and occasionally in person. So go up with a realistic ask for those officials, those personalities. Be always... The really strong campaigns are the ones that collect metrics. Why? Because if you've got metrics, it's how you're going to secure financial support next time. Any of you came to the ecosystem session this morning will hear me say, you've got to set out, first of all, what is my goal? What are the metrics? But then until you've actually collected metrics, don't bother trying to go and ask for serious money. Someone may give you money just because they like you. But if you really want resources, you've got to have impact and metrics, and you've got to have stories. You've got to be able to say, this is what we're at, where we're actually going, this is how we're going to get there, and here's some numbers. So if you aren't collecting metrics in your campaigns, it makes your long-term goal much harder. Of course, we're going to have a session on storytelling, but storytelling is naturally magical and essential to any kind of campaign. And then finally, your mission should be, of course, to scale your social media footprint. Something that some of you have communities of generations of people that are very comfortable with figuring out how to make this work. I don't use TikTok, but of course my kids do. But more importantly, some of the organizations we work with are very, very effective at utilizing social media channels for scaling the campaign. And if you're trying to get to the public at large, you should be on Instagram. You should be on these communities, because you're going to get to an awful lot more people than you're going to get to through just a live event. So certainly we think scaling it through, of course, social media and traditional media makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to end there and say those are some of the critical components of a campaign. That's a little bit of a history of GW, why we do it, what we're trying to accomplish. What are some of the things we think are important characteristics of organizations we think that have been able to make it successful? I can also, upon request, talk to you about some of the things those organizations get out of it. But I will mention to you that most of our GW organizations make money from it, in the sense that they have a campaign, they go raise sponsorship or public money, they get supported, and it allows them to employ people in their organization to do this. So as you well know, with GW, there's no... you're utilizing it hopefully as a means of a program that you can get funding for locally. And we want to make sure that you're getting funding not just to spend on coffee and spaces, but frankly on having a long-term sustainable staffing structure for the campaign. But outside of that, the biggest incentive is, for most people who do GW, because it's got such a wide reach, it's their way. It's another way for them to build their presence, their reputation in the entrepreneurial ecosystem nationally. Many people are involved in a very, very local way. This is an opportunity to build a national brand and a national reputation for being a good conduit. We'd like to hope that there's some value for being part of an international network, because that helps you explain to local communities, why is it that you're getting to be the national host of this thing? Well, part of the reason is you're a conduit and you've got access to a lot of other national leadership teams around the world through your fact that you are Gen. So I'm going to invite some comments if I can. Do we?
You can go to each slide. So each of those have a slide.
Right. So I know that Cindy, is Cindy here? Hi. Hi. Okay. So on this first slide here, I've got something called Enduring Your Campaign Appeals to a Wide Audience. Okay. So do you want to talk a little bit about El Salvador and what you've been doing?
Sí, me va a ayudar.
He's going to translate.
Ok.
Okay.
Bueno, tenemos 14 años ya con... Ya me toqué. Me ayuda.
I'm going to try.
Tenemos 14 años ya organizando la Semana Global.
There's already 14 years organizing GEW in Salvador.
Mantenemos cerca de 25 organizaciones en los últimos 5 años.
And till now, we have 25 organizations that are active in the events organizing for the agenda every year.
Comprometidos ya con la se ha denominado noviembre como el mes del emprendimiento gracias a
Thank you to GEW in Salvador. November is considering the entrepreneurship month every year. So there is a commitment to all of the government and other actors to do GEW every year and helping the campaign that is always released from GEN.
Tenemos 45 organizaciones que son parte del ecosistema nacional y de esas 25 son como ya las permanentes que nunca fallan.
In summary, there are 50 or 45 organizations that participate regularly, but 25 of them, they are always having several events for the agenda every year.
Okay.
And GEN and GEW is completely used fully as a brand that is now established in the country for the last 14 years.
So let me comment that, you know, when Cindy and her team respond to the surveys, one of the things that we notice consistently is that they connect across the country. So it's not just in the capital city, it's all over the distributed network. And that's talking about wide audiences because you're connecting with all the other organizations that also connect with their audiences as well.
Diga cómo han logrado que las 45 organizaciones alrededor de todo el país ejecuten la campaña.
I should also point out we have translation. We can get device.
In the meantime, they have 3 meetings 6 months before the release of the campaign annually, and that makes a commitment from all the organizations to get through the events and the alignment to the 45 organizations around the country, not only in the capital.
Thank you. And I apologize, I'm one of the few people that doesn't speak Spanish. But we do have translation facilities, so hopefully anybody that wants to take advantage of those, you can just ask for a set in the back. But we want to thank El Salvador, and I know your minister wasn't here today, but you're a great example of how to do a campaign that appeals to a wide audience, but also one that takes advantage of the big picture. So we appreciate that, and I want to encourage those of you who have not spoken to Carmen to talk about how they do that. To Cindy, sorry, and to stress that there is lots to learn from you about how to do that. One of the most important things they've done, though, is that they've got leadership from their minister. So your minister was with us in the GC in Melbourne. Couldn't be here today, but it's a good example of what happens when you're able to get the leadership of the national government. So, anybody else want to comment on this aspect of a campaign of either you're able to do it or not able to do it in terms of appealing to a wide audience? Love to hear some other thoughts if anybody wants to contribute. So, Renee?
Yes, thank you, Jonathan. I think at the beginning, when we start the organization of the campaign and all of that, we did it as a group, 10, 20 organizations that we were spread out in the country. And we worked with Miguel, as you remember. And what happened is that this organization only had an impact where we went. So we realized that we needed to expand our activities and talk to universities and talk to local actors. So from that point, every city, 9 cities of Bolivia, 10 cities of Bolivia, they do have a group of people that they organize the whole campaign and also activities. And also the universities compete against each other. For example, Oruro is a small city in a high altitude, and they put a big sign in front of the university and they say, this week everybody talks about entrepreneurship. And you will see pictures of that soon. But what happened is that when we went to talk to the media said, yeah, Monday, you started Monday. But we already covered that. So as I've been telling the last 3 years, is that we realized that we need to change a topic each day. So what we did is Monday, schools and universities. Tuesday, gender. Wednesday, impact entrepreneurship. Thursday, technology, or some cities, green entrepreneurs. And Friday, everybody technology and municipal governments. So we changed the whole thing and the expectative of the community, of the communication sector. Because the big magazines, they will go and cover one day one thing, the other, and they go and change actors. So we don't come out with the same thing. Renee Salomon doesn't go to the media. Everybody goes there.
Yeah.
So we make a big change there.
Yeah. And 2 suggestions.
Yes.
One is that make one of those days a failure day.
Well, we were talking about that earlier morning. Do you remember, well, as you know, there is a fuck-up night.
Yeah.
Okay? And we were talking about Startup Huddle.
Yeah.
I think we have to get alliance with them. I was the first one to bring fuck-up nights to Bolivia. I paid the subscription and everything. So we were really famous about it because I was the first one to talk about it,
Yeah.
$1.2 million gone. So those fuck-up nights were really good. And this year, we're going to make an alliance with fuck-up programs. So we're going to show that too.
Love that idea.
During the pandemic, you had Global Entrepreneurship Week on television.
Yeah, I was going to keep it up for later, but I'll say it. Well, during the pandemic, and also the first Entrepreneurship World Cup, we were the first one to do it in Facebook. And 3 days ago, it was going on the Facebook, reminding me that 5 years ago was going on that. But during the pandemic, we went to a TV channel, and talked to them and say, look, everybody's in their house, and we can show new faces and do things, like, for example, the Global Entrepreneurship Week. And we did it. And also, we talked with Roberto, we talked with Jorge, and 5 different countries, and we did all the whole week with different topics. And we exchanged activities with different people from the government, from the schools, universities, entrepreneurs, and all of that. So I think we keep going that, as I told you, Cecilia, we keep doing that by internet and virtually with the rest of the countries as a group.
Fantastic.
Jonathan, if I could jump in for a second here. Thank you, Renee. That's incredibly helpful information. I think you touched on a couple of different tactics as well that we've got kind of loaded up here for the conversation. The importance of media being one of them, right? And reaching out and engaging your national media. Another one being the concept of partnerships with strong partnerships with organizations or featured events. You mentioned Fuck Up Nights and kind of an alliance. What we encourage people to do in one of these tactics is to identify a select number of featured events that you're going to hold up. And so it's developing partnerships to really get those impactful and sticky and sexy kind of events that are going to capture attention. So that's another thing that you touched on. You also touched on kind of varying topics, theme days, right? That's great advice there as well. I'm wondering if anybody else has like any kind of experience in that kind of wider audience in terms of engaging like different, not necessarily topics or media, but different groups of individuals or communities throughout your countries. I think we're going to go over here.
Hello, good afternoon. One of the things that we've done in our GEW session is that we have found a way to use the Compass Award, but then instead of using it for all the GW hosts, we use it for our community. We started off by coming up with categories, so best technology, best large business, best out-of-the-box idea, and we came up with a logo. The logo was an oval circle from the GW circle that we have with all the colors, and then the B inside of it for Business Hall of Fame. We nominate in our team, we nominate like about 8 companies per sector. And then we give it back to the community at large to vote, to break it down to 2. And then we go the night of the event with the top 2. The event, we have invitees, but we also have space for the community, being the students as the future. We also made sure that we made an award, and the award is then the oval circle that we designed. I have pictures of it, and you can find it on our website also. And the B inside of it. And then underneath of it, you have space for the original logo from GW. You have also space on the other side for your country, so a drawing of it. And then you put best winner of whatever it's technology or whatever it is, the category is. And we do that with the idea that you fill a room with people, but of which half you don't have to invite anymore because they're nominated, so they have to be there to know if they won, yes or no. So in doing that, we noticed that the community likes it, and they were asking us already since in March, hey, didn't you all nominate people already? No, it's coming up in September. So it's going well, and it seems to be binding the group of different stakeholders together. I think it's something that we all can do in the Caribbean, and it's a way to professionalize your entrepreneurs, but also the surveys and the different things that is done in the name of entrepreneurship.
So can I share a little background about Amelia so that people understand when she talks about having different countries? So Amelia lives in Bonaire, and she and Alginia, who lives in Curacao, they support what was once considered the Dutch Caribbean. So nations like Saba and Saint Martin that don't necessarily have support, they've been supporting in helping them to stand up Global Entrepreneurship Week campaigns. So the mentorship has been really helpful.
Yes, that is true. That is also something that we've done and still doing.
Great. So awards, and I think there's some other people that have used awards as a good way to do it. A good collective event. So anybody else want?
Does media awards. Talk about how to get media in.
Yeah, one minute before Stephen switches over. If there's anybody interested in it, it is written. So if you want to do it, I think it's something nice for the Caribbean because you get a foothold in business and in your community. So you get well known in your community. So if you're interested, I have it written and it's in English. And we're going over to like a teenpreneur, teen choice award thing also, which has to be set up. So just for you to know.
If you could share that with Cecilia and Gary and I, that would be fantastic. We'll make sure that.
Perfect. Coming up.
Fantastic.
So two things I'll share. What we did.
Stephen, do you want to introduce yourself? We all know who you are, but
I'm Stephen Jessica from Ghana. I lead Gen in Ghana. So we've tried our best to track the impact that GW has made on the entrepreneurs in our country, especially those that emerged out of Global Entrepreneurship Week. And we did a small, like not a documentary, but a write-up to call like GW Ghana Made Entrepreneurs. So we picked up the entrepreneurs that came out of GW that had global traction, like going to Silicon Valley. And most of the times, there's some few entrepreneurs that came out of GW who are doing very well in Ghana. I would say roughly about 50% of thriving early stage startups right now in Ghana are people that came through activities of GW in Ghana. All right, so that gave a big conversation in the country. So, you know, the media will call you, oh, how did this happen? So you leverage on that. And to be honest with you, I always leverage the global reputation that we have and the global access network that we have to be the trump card to get stuff for us to do, and it's always worked. So out of that, we saw that, okay, you know, the media have got a way of doing things and the kind of stories that they want to cover. So we decided to create a program that will be of something of relevance to them. So we came out with an initiative called the Ghana Business Journalism Awards. So the question is that how do we recognize journalists who are talking about entrepreneurship in different aspects of business? So we have like best reporter in financial services, best reporter in agribusiness and all this stuff. So as long as the awards is around them, anything you put out, they'll write stuff because they want to be known. You know, they want their station to be known, like they have a business or TV talk show on business. They want it to be known, to be nominated for that. So you don't need to do much work. And you see, they'll give you free airtime because they'll be promoting themselves around your award scheme. So for us, this is something, when we announced that, and this year, we're going to do that. And it's like, they always ask, you know, when is the nomination thing coming out and all that. And I know that when we go out, they'll follow up. So these are some of the things that it sort of help and gets the word out there. And also get them to tune their content as well. Like during Global Entrepreneurship Week, right now we are asking them, talk about entrepreneurship. You know, whole week, discuss stuff from policy level. Bring your panelists and let's have conversation around that stuff. And I think if we start implementing ideas like that, it's something that will help impact your campaigns.
Is that that kind of journalism awards? Is that kind of one of the events that gets the most visibility for your Global Entrepreneurship Week campaign?
Yes, last year it did for us, and we're going to push on it because, you know, when we that's why we made it. It's business journalism, so just focus about business, not just about journalists.
No, of course.
Yeah, so focus about business, and we. The idea came out of a report that the British High Commission commissioned a company to do that, to see how journalists are getting themselves involved in business. And they realized that there was not much out of the impact. When I read the report, that was some of the findings. So we decided to kind of create something to address that findings, and it's kind of worked for us.
it's a great idea. I love it. Before we move on, I just want to quickly point out, you know, one of my favorite things we ever did with Global Entrepreneurship when we launched it with Prime Minister Gordon Brown in the UK in 2007, is we had what we called 100 ideas in 10 minutes. Or was it? I think it was 100 ideas in 10 minutes. And we stood there. And have you guys ever done that brainstorming exercise where you stand there and you've got people scribbling up on a whiteboard like this, but you got to come up with what's a good idea that will capture the attention of people to come and do. That's going to go out. That idea of doing something because the great thing is we all monitor the press where we've got people that write about entrepreneurs or write about entrepreneurship. I love that idea of doing an award for the best entrepreneurial media and reporter. It's a lovely idea. Isn't that a great thought? I mean, selfishly, you might get some coverage.
Jonathan, everybody, welcome to Puerto Rico.
Thank you.
In 2010,
So Carlos runs GW here in Puerto Rico, and he does an amazing job, and he knows how to catalyze. But keep going.
2010, and this is important. I think you have never heard this before. 2010, we were in deep trouble in Puerto Rico. The economy was doing really bad, and there was a study of Batson about the entrepreneurial economic system in Puerto Rico. In that meeting, I saw Francisco, and then I saw Laura, both from different organizations, one from Inteco, one from Guayacan. And after the meeting, I went to them and I told them, you know what? In about a month, we have a Global Entrepreneurship Week. And here in Puerto Rico, we have never talked about it. So we got together, the three organizations, and we did our first Global Entrepreneurship Week without any permits, right? We just did it here in the island. 2024, we are right now, right? In 2013, we did it again, and it's been 10 years, and today you are here because of that. Maybe it wasn't me who brought in the Global Entrepreneurship Congress to Puerto Rico. It was a pool of people putting together so Jonathan could come here with his team. But it happened because we started Global Entrepreneurship Week that day, okay? So I will want to share five things that maybe can help the people out there that are not doing it yet, and the people maybe that are doing it here. First, metrics. We love metrics. We like to compete. So our metric is to be number one in the most activities done in a Global Entrepreneurship Week. So our most focus is let's do 200 activities or more, because we know that we're going to be top 5. And we have been doing that for the last 5 years, okay? Even being a very small country regarding Texas, Florida, New York, and the population in other places. We are only 3 million people. So metrics is very important, so we keep focus on the quantity of activities. The registry of activities is difficult, so we figured out how to do it with the bulk system. We have only one person doing it, so everybody's, instead of every organization doing it on their own and they will not do it, what we have done is on a monthly basis, they will tell us what, and we have one person putting all the activities together, right? The other thing that we have done is we call them, I call them up. You know, I set up a meeting once a month. We are doing this. We start we start a little bit later because we are now organized. But like in April, we start once a month meeting, and then I call up everybody. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing in your organization? We started 3. Now there are more than 100 organizations participating in the Global Entrepreneurship Week in Puerto Rico. So, and I call them up. Hey, you have not told me, and we keep a detailed meeting minute, and I pass it by after the meeting, right? And we map it in two ways. One, geographic, so we know that all the island is 100 by 35 miles, but we have about 78 municipalities. So we hope that in each one of the 78 municipalities, there is at least one activity. If we have two, then we are in the top 5. So actually, that's what we try to do. If we have 3, better in each municipality. So we map it geographically, but also we map it like our friend here, Bolivia, by class, by group, or if it's LGBT, or it's tech, or it's whatever. So yeah, so we map it in both ways. So if there is a group that is missing, we will know, and we'll call up somebody who will fit in that area. And the other thing is consistency. You have to do the meetings. If you don't do the meetings on a monthly basis, it will not be done. That's my
Thanks, Carlos. And
my
thank
2 cents.
You're being way too humble. You're very much the reason we're here. So we give credit to Gloria, and of course we give a lot of credit to some of the leaders you've got, like Manuel Isidro. But you're near and dear to our hearts. So thank you for being our host this week.
And this has given us, Puerto Rico, a small country in the Caribbean, a lot of exposure globally.
Yeah.
So this has helped us exponentially.
Yeah.
And I'm thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, I want to also just, we'll come back, by the way, and talk about the website at some point, because there's so many important strategic reasons why we tell you that. And Ashley is here, who, if you have any issues with the website, is the person you'll talk to virtually on customer service. But also, if you want to spend time with Ashley, Mark, is she booking? Just go and connect with her on the app. Because if for some reason someone's saying it's difficult to add events or activities, we want to know about it. So
you can find her on the app. You could also find her stationed pretty much at the Gen booth. But I will say that the solution that you mentioned in terms of kind of one person entering it, whether it's manually or whether it's through kind of a bulk upload tool, I think a lot of campaigns have kind of picked up. But I know San Juan in particular, but Puerto Rico generally is always at the top of the list in terms of the most active communities in terms of events on the website. So thank you for that.
And for all of you, whether you are a GEW host, a national host, a USA entity, or an organization that just wants to host events, so here's a not so secret is the world is looking at the website during the week of Global Entrepreneurship Week. Mm-hmm. You are planning your events well in advance most of the time. So in September and October that you have these events coming up. That's a really good time to just upload them to the website, right? You have less bandwidth distributing to all these people adding it. And then if you know that something is happening, let us know so that we can schedule the awareness of global highlights and things like that. So the more information that we have before the week, the week of Global Entrepreneurship Week, we are all online, looking, helping people upload. But if in early October, oh, you know what? We've got this event coming up. Write us a little something, send it over to us so that we can share, or we can get that ready to be able to share before the flood of information comes in.
And I want to go a step further because it's sort of strategic. I mentioned this in the context of the database that's behind your campaign. It always puzzles me when you say that people don't want to register their own event.
There's too many.
And part of the reason is we've done a very bad job of communicating what they get for doing that. So if you register an event and you sign up on the platform, you're joining the Gen community, which of course is free. but you're becoming part of that community that we're going to engage with for the rest of the year. We're going to look for every which way we can to help you, to support you along the way. So the hope is that they have an interest in being part of an international community, and all they have to do is sign up for their event. And by doing that, they're joining you know, the people in Puerto Rico that obviously are connecting to that community. Now, so I just bring that up as something, you know, it's not just about, oh, will you do this for us because we want to know what events you're doing. It's also about, this is your way to learn to be part of our community. So, all right. So I want to invite people, since we, you know, in the interest of time, we're gonna make sure these slides are available to you on the resources section of the app, so you'll be able to see these. But again, I just want to point out, you know, this is a really important area. Just quickly, you talked about metrics. We talked about the website, but it's really, of course, it's really important for us, but it's really important for the whole global campaign that you can report that data. And I'm thrilled to know that some people are trying to compete, you know, on those numbers with the school boards. So, so who wants to share something else in terms of any of these, you know, any of these activities? I want to point out that we've got a few things to give as examples in terms of recruiting celebrities, government officials, and brands. Does anybody else want to share an example of how you've been able to do that successfully? Or if you wish, you can talk about, you can explain how frustrated you are that you've not been able to, and see if someone wants to help share on that. Because this is obviously very helpful in getting the attention of the media and the public. Go ahead. Okay, Jamila.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamila Lodge. I'm representing Bermuda Economic Development Corporation. I think we've been participating, since 2008 in Global Entrepreneurship Week. And I'm going to raise you. I think we probably are one of the smallest countries. We have about 63,000 or so people. So first thing, I just want to caveat that in my country, our organization is the primary organization responsible for all things entrepreneurial. So initially when we started in 2008, it was like Global Entrepreneurship Week. What is even that? And if it's entrepreneurship related, you do it. And so I know we encourage people to be catalyzers, but we had to be the catalyzer by showing the way. And one of the things that I can say that we can tell it's been successful is that people actually come to us now and be like, okay, it's GEW coming up. What are we going to do? And we're very much like you in that it's the whole month of November because we're such a small country. So because we're so small, like when I go to the grocery store, I'm going to see the premier of our country, which is like the president of the United States, and he happens to be an entrepreneur. So getting his participation and recognizing Global Entrepreneurship Week has been great. He at one time was also our minister, right? So in Bermuda, we have ministers. We currently follow in the Ministry of Economy and Labor. So with the premier being our minister, we were able to get him to proclaim November as Global Entrepreneurship Month. So we would do a formal proclamation, the whole nation got involved, we would record it, and it was kind of broadcast nationally. And I guess that's easy to do when you're a small country, right? But it definitely helped us to be able to gain support from private entities to be able to expand our outreach, because we do have a budget aligned to Global Entrepreneurship Week within our organization, but we always want to do bigger and better things, so it's never enough money. So by having the government and the premier involved in recognizing Global Entrepreneurship Week as a big deal, then it also allowed us to open up opportunities with private entities and private sectors who want to be involved and want to participate. And one of our highlights is participating with a reinsurance company who has co-opted our pitch competition. And so whereas we, as BEDC, used to offer $5,000 cash awards to the top pitcher of the year, that has increased to $25,000 grants with the support of one of the Global Atlantic Reinsurance Company in Bermuda. And it's as a result of that relationship and utilizing the media impact from the premiere and all of that being involved. So it definitely has added value. It has added credence to what we do in Bermuda. And I think if you are able to get any minister or government representative involved to sanction what it is that you're doing in your respective communities, I think it can help.
Anybody else got an experience of involving any other celebrities or government or brands? Sure. Oh, yeah. You want to go? Oh, go.
Okay,
Sure.
so what we've done in Jamaica is, well, Junior Achievement is the GEW host officially. So let me, for my friends across there. Right, and what we find is that getting young people engaged will expand. So November is also Youth Month in Jamaica. We haven't gotten the Ministry of Education on board yet, but we're working on it. But you can go to the schools directly and get them involved because they're always doing some kind of innovation, entrepreneurship type thing. Students are trying to fund their way through schools or helping families, etc. Now, they use that day in a lot of cases like a demo day. So with all the entertainment and showcasing your skills, etc., it becomes a real activity for the institutions. So because we wanted to continue, we're starting at base, right? So we get the schools involved. We've gone up to like 54 activities across 12 or 14 parishes and over 8,500 participants. Now, I'll talk about this at another time, but I think we just scored a major event while here in Puerto Rico. So we'll hear about it again. So look for events that are happening. When I was with the National Training Agency, we introduced GEW. We got it on the log frame or the scorecard for the organization. So across 27 institutions, each manager has Global Entrepreneurship Week. They must do something. So if we can get buy-in like that across other areas, then it will become something history, something to keep. And when you look at one of our major organizations, which is the government business organization, Jamaica Business Development Corporation, they have a whole week of activities, including an award, thanks Amelia, for their entrepreneurs, and they showcase it at their industrial center. So like last year, they had somebody from Africa working at doing some other kind of art with metal and African fashion and all of that. Everything was showcased. So it gives them more business as well, invites people who would not have normally been to their event. So you have to show them value and they have to buy in. So those are some of the things that we do. Another thing that we do too is that we have a partner in a media house, a radio station, and only because the person running that program is an entrepreneur himself and teaches entrepreneurship. So everything happens. So they use the opportunity to interview students in the schools during this week to find out what you're doing, and guess what? They're going to put it on social media. Hey, we were on the radio. Hey, we're talking. Listen to us. So you get the different level of engagement from the different groups, and this is how it will live on. We're still growing. We're still not at the top, but that's how we do. We make it happen.
You'll be pleased to know I'm going to turn over to Mark and Cecilia and Gary to drive the latter part of this conversation. But I want to offer one idea before I go, and that is, so the idea of media awards, good idea. So if anybody has a good idea, we'll trade you rather than making you buy this. If you promise that you're going to make it part of your GW campaign, we'll sponsor the cost of this thing and give it to you. So how many of you know about No Bad Ideas? Have you heard about it? We thought it was a good idea.
Saw it. He saw it and was more wondering.
Okay, fantastic. So what you need to do is, if you think you want to use this as a GW campaign activity, you'd have to go to the No Bad Ideas session we're laying on for you to see how it works, because it's got instructions. But you want to make sure that you make it an activity during GW, and if you need to order extra cards or if you want to buy extras, they're the thing. So here's one idea for a GW activity. You can bring people together to test their ideas and to figure out. Again, we've got a video, we've got a variety of things that can show you how to do it. So who wants to? So what you have to do for it is that you have to, when I leave, you have to come up with you have to explain another good idea. Stephen, you already earned one because you just came up with a great idea of a media awards. I like this, especially if it's there. But you've all got great ideas. So no, seriously, if anybody wants to do this as a campaign, let us know. We'll be happy to give you one as a GW host to do that in your country. And we've got a handful of them here.
And then Cheryl, great question. For anybody who's interested, that session that Jonathan was just referring to is the innovation workshop, No Bad Ideas, is going to be held on Wednesday in workshop room 3, which I think is just literally right next door or 2 doors down from this.
But yeah, if you do want to take one of those, go and see how it works and participate in that workshop. And you might turn around and say, I don't think this will work in my community, which is fine. But we'd be really interested in getting your feedback. Because, we're looking at lots of ways to engage people who are pre-start, people who've not started a company. They're just, again, it's the general public I'm interested in learning about. And this is a fun game way for us to get people involved who don't know anything about entrepreneurship and to teach them actually that entrepreneurship is about ideas. It's not about spreadsheets and marketing. So awesome.
Thank you,
Mark,
Jonathan.
keep going.
I was going to say, connecting the dots to one of the tactics that we had put up on the screen earlier in terms of kind of that select number of featured events. This is something that you'll see that we'll be pushing a lot globally during Global Entrepreneurship Week this year. And so, if you do decide to take a deck or you're kind of promoting it to your partners in your countries and communities, they're organizing kind of game nights or sessions during GW. That's something that we want to learn about from the global level so we can tell a global story and maybe attract a little bit of media that way, attract a little bit of attention for what you're doing on the ground. So definitely let us know if you're interested in that. Learn more at that session and keep your eyes peeled for November.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's in Spanish and English. So
thank you all. I'm going to be leaving, but just to say, we'll see you all at the reception tonight.
okay.
Thank you. Happen all week for me.
Thanks.
Sean, you had your hand up earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Thanks.
do me a favor and just let everybody know who you are, where you're from.
Okay, thanks, everybody. My name is Sean Richards. I'm from Canada, the ambassador for Global Entrepreneurship Day. So interestingly, I started, my journey with Jen started with GW itself in 2022. And I was nominated to be part of the hosts and the planning committee by the national partner, which is a Futurepreneur. And I think, there's an agreement that's, that. So the very first year, what I did was to, maybe this might be my own good idea to drop, to bring in the city council, the university community, some entrepreneurs, and then also one of the key incubators as well in the city of St. John. And we have one of the representatives here, Connection Work. So we had each person from the ecosystem just present. And then I just played the role of organizing that event. And it was a pretty much, successful everybody keep talking about that till today in the city. And the following year, we just kind of amplify that a little bit. Instead of one city, we spread across to 4 cities across Atlantic Canada, St. John, Moncton, Fredericton, and Halifax. And each of them had various things that we did. But I would like to mention one of the things that stood out for us last year was we did a proclamation. We met the mayor of the city. She was pretty much very excited. That was the first time they were having that proclamation in the city of Fredericton, and then officially, declared the Global Entrepreneurship Week. And going forward, she has made a commitment that will be something that will be done every year. And I hope to amplify that further this year by, spreading across other cities in Canada. Another thing that I was something that works a lot is partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. I think they're very much excited to work with Global Entrepreneurship Week in Canada, and that could also be, now metamorphosing to what we also. One of the things I also did in 2 years, was to bring the member of parliament, MP, he spoke about entrepreneurship, which is very good. But this year, part of what I'm working on, and it's interesting, Jonathan was talking about celebrities and bringing them in. Part of what my plan this year was to I'm talking to 2 guys. One is the 6-time Olympic medalist, Andrea Day Gracie. And I'm sure probably know him, right? So he's an entrepreneur. He has a foundation, and he's sponsoring lots of entrepreneurs coming up. And then also, we call him the grandfather of rap in Canada, West Metro. He lives in our city, So I believe those guys would definitely amplify, the voice of, entrepreneurs and make it something like a good idea, bringing people together. These are unconventional entrepreneurs in the community in Canada. Right. So, yeah.
Thanks, Sean. I've got actually a comment to follow up on that, but I think, Renee, you had your hand up for a second, so I'll turn to you first, and then I'll connect a couple of dots about Canada and the
And I
U.S.
have a
campaign
question,
as well.
too.
Okay.
You have a question, Cheryl? Okay, yeah, we'll come back to you in a second.
Yeah, talking about ideas and the package.
Eyes on the prize.
yes,
See?
yes,
That's Renee.
yes,
Eyes
yes.
on the prize.
Everybody, and also the tendency in the world is to have a pet in the house, a cat and a dog or whatever. I think it will be a good idea if one day, as a vertical, we do something with entrepreneurship with pets. Work with pets or put ideas, what you can do with your pet. For example, right now our pets are it's not a hospital, it's a veterinary, where we have to pay for each day to be there. But I was thinking that maybe put in a hotel. No, that's already there, but during the Global Entrepreneurship Week, we can have one day talking about pets and ideas.
This is like the brain trust is already talking right there. So one of the things that, and I think we'll talk about it tomorrow. So tomorrow, just a little teaser, we're going to be talking about how we do it in the United States, because by default, we are the Global Entrepreneurship Week hosts in the United States. So we invite all of you to come to that session to say, what are the things that work for us? We can also share some of the things that don't work for us. But one of the things from our future host for GEC in Indiana, one of the things that they did was create an entrepreneur yearbook. And you can talk to them about 2 people that started a project because they wanted to think about sustainability and dog toys. Dog toys usually end up in a landfill. They're not biodegradable. They're not green. They're not eco-friendly. And so these 2 people that started this project started to create this this dog toy that is made of materials that will be degradable. They also talked about hiring people to make these dog toys that were people with disabilities or something like that, so it would give them some revenue share. That's called triple bottom line, right? So you're thinking about people, planet, and profit. There were high school students that did this. So Indiana has one of the largest high school pitch competitions. About 5,000 high school students take part in this. This is something that I would have never known about, except that they put together a yearbook, right? Every year they recognize 100 entrepreneurs and tell their story. It is one of the most beautiful publications I've ever seen, but you want to celebrate the people that you have. That's a great idea. I don't know. I'm taking one of these home.
And I'll just kind of I'll come back to you in one second, and I know you've got a question, but I just want to underscore that sounds exactly like what Stephen was talking about earlier. You've got the GW entrepreneurs. I don't know how many, I can't remember how many you said you had, like 500 that basically they draw not a dotted line, but a direct line to Global Entrepreneurship Week and why they're successful or how they got their start. Maybe they met a co-founder at a GW event. Maybe they learned something that inspired them. Maybe they found some funding, met an investor somewhere. But like, as somebody who's got I wear a lot of different hats, right? I've talked to all of you about different things, but I kind of come from a communications background. And so like if I've got a story to tell where I've got some young successful entrepreneur or some old successful entrepreneur that basically says, the reason why I am where I am is because of Global Entrepreneurship Week, man, that's gold. That's going to benefit all of our campaigns if we can just tell those stories. And so that's the key, is unearthing those stories, finding those successful entrepreneurs that basically are just grateful. They're like, thank you for bringing us in, opening our eyes and helping us do this. Okay, so I'm starting to lose.
You wanted to connect the dots on Canada?
Connect the dots on that, and then connecting the dots on Canada. One of the things I wanted to say is contrast what Sean was saying compared to what Jamila was saying, right? I wish I could bump into President Biden at the grocery store in the U.S., or I'm sure Sean wishes he could kind of rub elbows with the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau in Canada.
Didn't we
but
have something? Justin Trudeau did something.
He does. He does.
For Global Entrepreneurship
He's been doing
Week.
stuff like every year, and so he's a fantastic champion for us. But sometimes opportunities in larger countries are a little bit more difficult, right? And so we just have to kind of be a little bit more creative about how we approach things. And so one of the things that we do that sounds like it's kind of in the U.S. that tracks with Canada is kind of this concept of like community organizers and state coordinators, right? And so it's like, man, the U.S. as a whole is huge, and there are so many people and so many different organizations, but how can we kind of break that down and make it more manageable? And so we do that by recruiting essentially volunteers who are playing kind of the role that you guys are all playing around the table at a national level, but we're telling them, look at your community, look at your city, or look at your region, right? Look at your state, and kind of play like a mini host organization role at that level. And so we kind of break it down into bite-sized chunks.
So Eric, raise your hand back there. That's Eric. He's our state coordinator for Arizona. So he's a perfect example of what we're talking about.
And to underscore what Cecilia mentioned, that GW USA Summit that we have coming up on
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, not Wednesday. Tomorrow, it's open. And so if anybody wants to kind of come in and engage in conversations with our U.S. community, strongly encourage you to do that as well. Okay, so Cheryl, you had a question, and then
Violetta has a comment.
Violetta over here. So Cheryl first.
I'm going to make a statement first, then after.
Okay.
Of course.
I don't know how you do it at Global, but you have corporate sponsors, right? Why can't you adopt a region for GEW every year and use your corporate sponsors to help push that effort? So let's say Caribbean, there is FedEx up there. Why don't you use FedEx to help bolster the Caribbean GEW activities this year? Then next year, you probably look at over at Indonesia and all those places. Then you probably look at Panama and Latin America.
It's
You
volunteer
probably
too.
look at, it lends a flavor. People want to see international brands that they know it's not enough for us to be the mouth on the ground. It is, but they also want that kind of a flavor, because remember, we have to relate.
Yeah.
When you're from a smaller community, you have to relate internationally, and it does help.
Let me make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying there.
Yes.
Because I thought I was tracking with you at the beginning and kind of leveraging global sponsored dollars to go into regional campaigns or national campaigns to promote that. But then were you saying, and then at the end, I thought you started getting into, at the global level, our team doing a better job of lifting up or elevating the
No.
sponsors that you all have.
No, not
Okay, it was the first
using
one.
your global sponsor.
Right.
So whatever money you get from them, I don't know if that's it. It could be sweat equity, it could be just leveraging the brand somehow, whatever
Right.
it is. But it does help to
Raise up
bolster
the
some of the
region.
stuff, to push it along.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I will definitely connect with you offline about that. I mean, obviously, everyone here has dealt with, corporate sponsors, partners of different, types and stripes.
But sometimes.
Yeah, and so you kind of have to do a little bit of a dance of like trying to figure out what their priorities are, and like, oh, what are you interested in, and how can we make this fit for all of us? And so we do the same thing, but whatever we can do to help you all, like I'm interested in at least trying to understand better to see if we can make something happen.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do assist with is the conversation with the State Department in the United States. So I'm going to point out Patricia for a minute. She's a steadfast warrior in doing this. So we sent out a notification every year to the U.S. State Department, and they send out a cable to all of their embassies and missions all over the world to say Global Entrepreneurship Week is coming up. And how many people in this room get sponsorship dollars from the U.S. Embassy? Some?
They
No?
don't even attend the events.
So
Couple of times.
But we never receive.
So some of them do. Okay, so I know, like, just off the top of my head, I know Madagascar does, and there's a couple of countries that definitely
We
do.
don't get the money, but we get others.
You get in-kind donation, right, or sponsorship. So remind them next year, the U.S. is going to be hosting. So Catherine, who works on our comms team, lives in Canada. One of the things that she's talked about is hosting a reception that's sponsored by the U.S. Embassy, because we're about to welcome people into the United States. So what happened in Dominican Republic is that we sent out a cable telling them about GEC Puerto Rico, and they translated it into Spanish, and they sent it out to the people that they work with in the community, right? And so it wasn't just to them, it was sent out to everybody in the region. The person in Santo Domingo actually translated it and sent it out, and we got a bunch of emails, and for some of them, I copied Patricia in on, because they said, I run an organization, I do this. So tell them what your response to them was.
That obviously they're not able to come to GEC because that came out super late for them, and that GW is around the corner. That they should follow our account to kind of find out about the campaign once it starts, and they can get involved. Some of those were entrepreneurs having companies, so some of them we are even inviting them to do some activities. Like one of them does an entrepreneurs like kind of bazaar. So we are already connecting directly with some of them to ensure that they are part of the GW. So we are getting them engaged.
So
I'd like to add that in Bermuda, we consider the U.S. Consul General's office one of our partners. And so every year they reach out to us and they're like, okay, what are you doing? How can we participate? And typically it's the U.S. Consul General will do opening remarks, welcome remarks at some of the different events. And we've also hosted events at the residence there, specifically around women entrepreneurship when the U.S. Consul General has been a woman.
And Cecilia, if I may add also with the U.S. Embassy, We have already had a connect directly through Cecilia. So we are inviting them to kind of be part of the campaign to see if they can get involved with it. So these are part of the things that we're kind of starting to set in motion as we speak to ensure that they also try to have some engagement with them this year.
Thank you. So one of the things that you might want to know about the way that the U.S. State Department operates is usually they're in a country for 2 years, and then it's August that they shift. So I would probably either let them know when you get back, hey, we've got GEW coming out, so that if there's any money, any budget left over right now, before they transfer it over to the next group, that you get them to think about Global Entrepreneurship Week, and then after August, you want to talk to the new people that are in place. So those are some key times to get in touch with the U.S. State Department.
Cecilia, if I may. Actually, speaking of this finances, I want to add something that Jonathan has already mentioned at the end of his introduction. What GEW actually does good thing for us. As an MD, I'm also responsible to ensure that our organization is sustainable financially. And I think GEW is a very good way of not only building the GEN brand in the country, but also you can leverage the GEW with the partners to ensure that you can actually generate revenue through this partnership. For example, we focus a lot of our activity on education, and a lot of our GEW partners are actually schools and universities. And of course, when we were doing GEW events, then everything was for free. But then they know that we are doing this, and we're focusing a lot on mindset building and capacity building for teachers and lecturers. Then they will ask us again later, can you help us with the workshop and all that? That is something that we can actually generate revenue after this because of the GEW we did with them.
I love that. So, thinking about, so you showcase what you do during GEW, and then you take that and share what you're going to do next, right? So, yes, go ahead, Cindy.
Dilo y te lo traducen allá.
¿En serio? Ok, va, ok. Bueno, me dicen que me lo van a traducir. Cuando la GED nació, ¿verdad? Comenzó el foco con los jóvenes. Y eso es lo que nos ha ayudado a nosotros mucho en mantener un número importante de participantes, porque las instituciones de educación superior, principalmente universidades, toman la Semana Global como el cierre de concursos, el cierre de ferias, el cierre de ciclos, donde han motivado emprendedores y hacen premiaciones, concursos de planes de negocio, concursos pues, de innovación en productos o servicios, y eso cautiva pues, toda la parte de población estudiantil. Nosotros aprovechamos esas actividades para patrocinar, digamos, roll-ups, banners, camisetas, incluso hasta viajes, pero quizás más que todo la marca del GEN en camisetas, en banners, y eso y ellos, para ellos es muy emocionante, entonces eso les motiva. Y quizás la...
There's so much information to translate, but
Thank you.
for the first 13 years, the focus of GEW was young people. And that was interesting in Salvador, because they used to, in November, they used to close all of the students' programs around entrepreneurship, and that's why they get the way to GEW get established as a brand in T-shirts, in another stuff, things that they get into all of the schools, and this was the beginning of the GEW. In the time till now, there's going the agenda for another kind of campaign. So there is a transversality, but there is no exactly as the beginning, that it was just for young people. So it could be something that we can establish now to get all around the world a GW events more fully of people.
So if can I tell? Okay.
Start, and then I'll jump in.
So
I think.
So for some of you may know this. For the others of you, this may be news. So we come up with a theme, right? Last year's theme was Entrepreneurs Thrive Here, which was really good with politicians because they just always wanted to say, this is where we're doing entrepreneurship. So some of you how many people know what the theme is this year? Okay, all right. So this inner circle knows. Now, I don't know if we've got all the collateral, so don't everybody tweet it all at once. But the theme this year is entrepreneurship is for everyone. Okay, and so talking about what it looks like in your country. So in the beginning, yes, it's very youth focused. We have a lot of junior achievement people that got involved in Global Entrepreneurship Week. But now thinking about, there's a lot of demographics of people that do not qualify or do not work in these regular jobs in the offices, going in 9 to 5. Like, this is not how the world works anymore. So what does that look like? Maybe in your community, the gap is with elder people that are retiring, but they still want to work, right? So you have this, we have a session this GEC about silver, yeah. So the silver economy,
But there is
right?
still hair.
I want to give a shout out to Alginia. Alginia in her small island nation works with a group that works with neurodivergent entrepreneurs. Right? Alginia, you have can you tell us the name of the organization?
And we work with different groups. One of them we nominated, I think 2 years back to get the special award, was a group of youngsters, but they are disabled. And they were, we came up with a plan with the person working with them and their mothers, because their parents wanted them to participate in activities of the Global Entrepreneurship Week. And then they came up with a plan to train them on their level, but then they became entrepreneurs, and they call them happy face entrepreneurs because of their disability. But then they organize a lot of markets to sell their goods, and they learn how to go about with finances on their level, and they sold a lot of articles. And when they graduated, we came up with a plan that they could visit the Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber of Commerce, which is also our partner, we partnered up with them. So the graduation was at the Chamber of Commerce, and it was, sometimes you do little things for people, but they find it very virtual. And their parents and also the media cover it because they find it something exceptional that Global Entrepreneurship Week would do something special like that for that group. So I think I would advise that Junior Achievement also, sorry, not Junior Achievement, so I'm mixing up my heads, that Global Entrepreneurship Week also maybe they can come up with a plan to do something for other special groups also.
So that's what we're looking to you for. This is the invitation for all of you to think about the gaps in your country, to think about the gaps in the people that are sitting at the table. The idea of an entrepreneur is young, white, and tech focused, and you know that that's not true. I know Violetta works with indigenous communities. So there's a school in Ecuador that. Right?
The Amazonic region. Yep.
Yeah?
Okay. I was talking about that because I knew what the theme was for this year because I was in that meeting. So when you say what was the theme of this year, I went to my committee that helps me to think about GW for this year, and I said, we have to do something because all of us, we work with underserved communities. And I'm talking about that leveraging existing communities. And also entrepreneurship is an organic thing. And we get inspired about, the Pride campaign that this year has been everywhere. And we realized that we have to focus in these underserved communities. So we are going to make a campaign in media, in social media, showing these entrepreneurs for these communities, indigenous, LGBTQ plus, special people in special places. So that's the idea that we have different from other years. We used to focus on other things. And we also have a big community of refugees that they're living now. They're living because Ecuador is living in a problematic situation, let's say that. But the people that is staying is fighting for their business and their lives, has a beautiful story to tell. And these are the people that we want to show to the world. People that fight against all odds to have success. So if anyone want to do the same, you're very welcome to join us and send a campaign showing these people that is fighting from their special places, because we need to show them to the world. They are really inspiring.
Yeah.
So once you know them.
So if I could jump in on that point, and there's something that Carlos had said earlier when he was talking about what it took to get the local campaign here off the ground, and it was basically the idea of the monthly meetings, and you just kind of have to ask, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing, and I know Gary and Cecilia lead our monthly webinars and meetups with the GW host organizations, and I know a lot of you are on each and every one of those calls, sometimes no matter what time of day or night it is, and so thank you for that. But I also want to encourage all of you, and we probably need to get Carlos in on those calls too. But
he's on the U.S. calls.
Yeah, but also on maybe on these calls.
You could do double time. It's okay.
We'll make you do two. But sharing these ideas, and so around Eugenia, you said we need to kind of bring a little bit of a focus to this. Well, it sounds like there's already a number of host organizations or campaigns that are doing something similar. So if we can all find a way on those calls to kind of connect the dots and find out where there's overlap with all the things that you all are doing, that's the stuff that the global team can then lean into a little bit and amplify, and we can kind of shine a light on all the cool things that you all are doing. But I think sometimes it gets a little bit of a log jam if it kind of has to or a choke point if it kind of comes through our team a little bit, right? But if on those calls, if you're all using those calls to kind of think through, talk through, what are we all doing? What can we do? Where are there overlaps like that? Then we can really kind of spotlight what those highlights are of your campaign.
So Violetta mentioned the LGBTQ plus community. I'm just going to give a plug for tomorrow evening, that there will be a gathering, a happy hour, sponsored by one of our partner organizations, Start Out. Start Out is an organization that supports LGBTQ founders. So this is an opportunity to talk to people that represent or are allies. So go attend their happy hour. They'll be very happy to see you. So what's hard? What's the hardest part?
and I've been wanting to say this for a moment now. One of the hardest thing, and I don't know if it is a Latin American thing or not, but at least it's something in the Dominican Republic, which is getting people to put the information on time.
Yeah.
That's our biggest challenge. And it doesn't matter how much you communicate with them, you tell them, you call them personally. Like for me, exactly, mañana.
It never
Mañana,
happens.
ahorita, espérate, ya mismo. So that is one of the biggest challenges that we have in the Dominican Republic. And like, for example, for me, it was embarrassing that after I sent the report, I found out that there were like 30 more activities that were not on the website. And we had like another like 2,000 participants in those 30 activities that were not recorded at any point in anywhere. So I think that is one of the hardest things for us.
But it's cultural. It's cultural.
No, that's why I say it's a Latin American thing.
It's global.
It's global.
Okay.
I can assure you.
It's not
So,
And it's my numbers. I don't want to.
Oh, no. Yeah, it will happen. Anyway.
exactly. That's another thing. It's my data. Why should I give you? I was like, I'm not asking you for the list if you don't want to give me. I just want numbers.
Yeah.
So it's always hard to get those things. And the second thing is getting the government involved. When I worked at the government, even when I worked at the government, I worked at the government. It was hard. It's just like, unless it is something that they're really going to get a benefit out of, they don't want to get engaged.
So that's the question. What is the benefit, right? I don't think we articulate that enough. What is the benefit to the government to showcase the things that they do?
But let me tell you something, Cecilia, on that front. Even when you work at the government and you know what the benefits are and you try to tell them and they know, it's just, at least in our country, it is a matter of whether it is an important agenda during that year, whether they are campaigning or whether they are doing something else. So even if they know and understand what the benefits are, it's hard to kind of make them like come to you and really be part. One of the things that we have come up this year, my team and I, is like to do a campaign. It's like being the president of GEW. We may not get him, but if we get somebody in a ministry level, then we're going to be pretty happy. One thing that did work one year was that they're doing a launch of the National Entrepreneurship Network, and that was like the only year we're able to get kind of a few people. But otherwise, unless it is something like that, with local government, yes, but they don't have the same impact. Yeah, I know. Because
Let me share something interesting, which maybe people can try. For us, what has worked is still taking the past impact of GW, the presidents around the world that has been involved and celebrities. So we put that like a deck together. So when we're sending letters to office of the president, and all the time they respond to that. We've been very active with the president office when it comes to Gen stuff, Global Entrepreneurship Week. The trump card is that, I'll let you understand that we have these global leaders who are backing this campaign up. So I've taken it from 2007, Gordon Brown participation. I've listed all the global leaders who have kind of issued statements to support GW. So I say a list of global leaders around the world that have supported or participated in GW activities worldwide.
So you're going to share that deck, Stephen?
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
Tomorrow.
So when you add that to your letter, they see that they're like, oh, Hillary Clinton at that time state secretary issued something. Obama said that. You get a call because they also want to be seen themselves featured in those places.
So
That's true.
That's a great point to bring up, Stephen, and thank you for doing that. One thing that I'll plug here is that Gary on our team has kind of taken on the task or the role of kind of pulling together recommendations and tips and tricks and advice for the GW host guide.
Yeah.
What I would love for us to be able to do, maybe it's through that document and that process, or maybe it's something different, but if, we can start to create that list, almost like a Wikipedia version of that list, where I know from a global perspective, we can add a few dozen names to that right off the top of our heads. But then, like you said, a lot of you know who in your countries have been involved. And if we could just continue to build this list, you're right, that's impressive. And they see like, oh, if I see that everybody
it
else has
works.
already been in this, it's not a risk.
I remember one time someone sent me an article that, oh, the president have said something out about about GEW. I didn't even know, and like, because why? The letter that we took to him, I said that, oh, can you issue a statement announcing that this month, like, the world is celebrating entrepreneurship, and you said this is what you're doing to show your commitment to entrepreneurship. So that week he was going to speak at a big business event and stuff like this. So, and he said in his statement, oh, I'm joining world leaders to say X, Y, Z, and the press picked that up. I didn't do any work, to be honest, and like, it's just because of the letter we took to them and that document that was attached to it, and that will open a lot of doors for you. Trust me.
I'd just like to say that what's worked for us is just answer the question, what's in it for them? Because really, especially politicians, it's all about how they look and optics, right? Especially if there is an election year or they're trying. So for our organization, we can say we've helped, hundreds of entrepreneurs start businesses directly related to pitch competitions that have been held during Global Entrepreneurship Week. Well, our ministry is going to take full credit for that. So if there's an opportunity for them to be photographed, if they can do welcome remarks at the opening event, then it definitely paints them in a good light, right? Because, it's government's fault that everything wrong happens. That's just how it is. So if there's an opportunity for them to counter that with the good things, look at all these businesses that have been formed and we support that, then I would say leverage that. So figure out what it is that they're trying to achieve, what's important to them, and identify the events in your various communities that can support what that initiative is. And then also direct it to the relevant ministry, right? We have a ministry of education. So whenever we have youth-related events, guess who we reach out to? Our Minister of Economy and Labor is focused on entrepreneurship. So if there's a Minister of Finance and we're doing something around that, then that's who we direct it to. Because again, what's in it for them? Why should they come? Why should they be involved? And so if they can come out smelling like roses, then
Thank you.
it helps.
So make them look good.
Yeah, that's good. Good point.
Basically.
Question here for anybody to kind of answer. As you all know, at the GEC, we have put on a ministerial as part of that, and so I'm just kind of wondering, like, if you're kind of connecting the dots on those two things. And so, when you're talking to government officials in your countries, are you basically asking them to get involved in Global Entrepreneurship Week? And oh, by the way, this same group will convene once a year globally, and that's a good way for you to get an invitation to a global ministerial where you can actually see and talk to and connect with a lot of other leaders around the country or around the world that are doing the exact same thing. Is that
Mark,
does that help, or is that not a help at all?
Apart from all those things, I have been asked to prepare a paper for them and to align it to their goals and whatever it is.
So they're putting you to work.
Yes.
Mark,
so when we were going to
Tell you too?
Australia, when we were going to Australia, I had to find out what products are being exported to that region.
Yes.
And all kinds of other things. Yeah. And they put you to work and they want to meet with you. Mm-hmm. And when you turn up, oh, I have to cancel, I forgot that meeting. Yep. Yeah, and they eventually never come. And then they love to ask you, when you invite them first, is the minister going to be paid for, and is his assistant is going to come with him? And you got to pay for it.
Oh, boy.
And I said, no. You have a budget, use your budget.
That's why they don't come.
Yeah,
well, they got to stay.
For us on the ministerial stuff, it's the same thing like I was saying. I think our last one in Australia, we took like 13-member government delegation that went. And because it was happening in Australia, so what I did was that I started having conversation with Australian ambassador, high commissioner, like in Ghana. First of all, we went to meet to discuss about this whole thing. And like, you see, we have to be entrepreneurial ourselves, okay, as like capitalist people. So when it comes, we have to also understand this economic diplomacy language. Okay, so I told the ambassador that, okay, Ghana, this is a global event. Your government is hosting it. There's opportunity for us to take Ghanaian, both delegation, both private sector and the public sector institution, to go to Australia and to see how best we can deepen that collaboration. And for me, Australia was very big in education, okay? So at that point, I made sure that the Minister of Education was playing a key role. So I even paid a courtesy call with the Deputy then Minister of Education, with the ambassador. So that's where it started off from. So the conversation started, and when we started galvanizing the people got interested. We all went, and it was, to be honest with you, even at the visa level stuff, they just did a letter, to send to the visa section, themselves, and almost all the delegation that they submitted within 2-3 days, their visas were done for them because of the process that we started from. When we came back from Australia, Melbourne, I went back there again with the minister again, and some of the ecosystem players that came to Australia with us, to just go and thank the ambassador about it. And even I explained to the ambassador, these are the opportunities that we found that it could be of interest for Australian companies to, and they've been excited about that. And look, recently when I was about to even leave to the US, they had a big event to do with education. They reached out to us in Ghana, we've seen that you know how to work with institutions. We want to connect academia people in Australia, but in terms of how can this institution do businesses with Ghanaian schools. And we got people to be there at that event for them. So it's something that I say we have to be entrepreneur and learn how to play the game and play the cards and sing the language. And if you're singing their song, trust me, they'll give you whatever you need to be able to make these things happen. Right.
So these are the conversations, if you miss them, that happen in Slack sometimes, happen on the monthly calls sometimes. So that's why we like to hear your voices. We like to see you. Gary and I have tried to make an attempt to make sure that we are equitable to different parts of the world, so that if it's the morning one month in the United States, that the next month we do the call in the evening, so that we can capture most of the world. I feel very bad about the country of Uzbekistan. We never seem to get it right to connect with them. So poor Hikmat and his team, a little bit late or early for them. But yeah, this is how we know all these stories that we share with you. It's because we hear about them.
And I think that's an important, Amelia, I'll come to you in a second, but I think that's an important point, right?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times, we'll say we're kind of keeping an eye on a global campaign. We're not necessarily, we're running kind of a national campaign in the US, but, you all have the expertise and the experience of what you're doing in the countries, and, and it's working really well. And so we're really hoping that we're not preaching to you, that you're sharing and learning from one another. And so a colleague of ours, Catherine Forrest, who happens to be our director for communications, is probably going to kill me when I say this, but Stephen, I would love to get you on camera sharing a couple of the experiences that you've mentioned here, whether it's, that kind of delegation that story about the delegation in Australia, or, about the 500 entrepreneurs that have a direct line to GW. We can share this stuff on Slack. We can share it on these monthly calls. We can do it in the host guide. We can get some of the stuff on camera too. And so that way, whatever we can do to capture this brilliance that comes from all of you and share it with each other, I think we're all going to benefit from.
And Mark, one last thing.
Just one last thing on that point. So there's a TV studio. If you go into the Gen Village, we've got 4 little booths that are set up in the back. The one on the far left is what we call our Gen TV studio, where Catherine is arranging interviews. So if you're in the village and you're walking around, take a look at that. And if you've got a few minutes to stop by, get a few words on camera, I'd be really grateful.
Yeah, one last thing I want to share with everyone is that, especially working with government, that we have to all be careful, especially diving yourself into politics. You have to build in a way that it doesn't matter whichever government that comes on, you'll be able to work with them. I have been very, very tactful with that. Okay, and it's easily in our country, you dive yourself into one particular government, and another government comes, they don't want to do anything with you because they feel like you're paying some allegiance to someone else. I've been very neutral. I tell them I'm not a politician, till I go to the ballot is when I do anything. And we work with all administrations that comes in, you know. There are times that they want to certain levels ask you to spearhead certain things, and you have to do your political risk analysis to look at it that, okay, this thing I'm going to do it, how would that be perceived about the organization that you're running with, you know? And if you're being seen that way, like you're highly political about specific things, like you're maybe following a specific political party or something, even when you're applying for other grants, you're not going to get it. Especially, I think recently we did a bid with USAID, and it's one of the requirements, like they look at it that, okay, are you affiliated to any political campaign? Have you been involved in all that stuff? Those are some of the things that it doesn't help you attract funding. You know, so if you're getting yourself to work with government, you have to be very tactful, you know, and even if you don't know how to do it, get someone who else can help you do that political de-risking, so that you always, whoever comes in, they know that you're a neutral organization, you can work with them. The focus about the impact onto the nation. So that's what I just want to add up to.
Thanks for that. I just want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I have an eye on the clock, so it's 4:23. So we got about 6 minutes, right? So anybody, yeah, if there are points. Amelia, thank you. I forgot to come back to you. So
Yes,
we'll start with you, and then, but the rest of you be thinking, if there's any of these tactics that we haven't covered yet that you want to address, or there are other things. This is the list that Jonathan had pulled up earlier, but if there's other things that you want to throw out there, this is just the time for sharing. So Amelia, we'll start with you.
Okay. On the part of government, I would like to give a shout out to my own local government. We're coming up on 10 years, and we've always gotten funding from them. So on funding, they're the main sponsor. So I'm grateful and very respectful for that. I'm a little bit queer sometimes in certain things, so I tend to disagree. I tackle political issues, but I do it playfully. One of the things that we're discussing with the team to tackle is we have problems with tires. We're on an island, and then they burn the tires. So what we want to do is maybe come up with an idea that we get people to plant trees and use the tires around it, or those that are good with their hands, that they make playgrounds and do other things. And then based on that, we give them, in our VIP sessions or our award sessions, you give them the raffle. So that's one of the things that we were talking about last month in our team meeting. So that's just to say that you don't have to stay away from the topic, but don't go on it head on, and don't tell them it's a political topic. Come with it like an environmental solution, but then playfully. Who doesn't like getting gifts in a raffle? Gee, I'm first in line. So you can do political things. Don't call it a political something. Another, one more point that I wanted to add, my colleague Eugenia is there, and she's sitting down quietly, but during COVID, we had one of the biggest campaigns ever. And our campaign was online. We did sports as a business, and we had also music and comedy. And those things, we were looking for ways to get everybody to sit around the table to enjoy time with their family and not feel like, hey, it's COVID, so there's no entrepreneurship. It really worked. So Eugenia had some ideas to capitalize on it. I don't know why she didn't say anything about it. So I said, yeah, since she's sitting far away, let me just touch it. But it really was something spectacular to see. We had about 20,000. How much, Eugenia? And we had them from all over the world for a small country.
I think we had 20,000 viewers at that time. I think I came in late, so I didn't know what Amelia said, so I didn't want to repeat, so I didn't say a lot. But I think Amelia can speak for us both when she's speaking about our experiences. I think because we are small, I think somebody mentioned 63,000. Amelia is 20,000, so 22,000. So she is the smallest, I think, in the group. But we come up with ideas because you're small. You have to come with more ideas than the other countries and come up with ideas that are different. Because you're small, you get more exposure sometimes. So that's why up to, I think, 3 years back, we started to do Road to Global, when we engage all the organizations that do something engaged with regards to entrepreneurship. So in September, we will start with Road to Global, and we put that in our program. Sorry, we don't put it on yet on the Gen Global Action, but this year, we're going to do it, because from my IT persons, I hear it's a little bit difficult, so probably we'll get them to contact Jen so they can do that and do that properly. So we do the global, pre-global, 2 months, and we have a global entrepreneurship month because we have such a lot of activities. I think we got, in the 10 years we organized GEW, I think we got nominated for Curacao 4 times, and we won only 1 time, but I think it was, I don't know if it's Barbados or Bahamas, but I think we have to challenge them, you know?
Excellent. I want that.
We have to challenge them. So, and then we have an event after Global. For example, last year we had youth, the schools. I think somebody mentioned schools, involving schools. We had the schools competition with all the schools where they had to use oatmeal. Oatmeal? Oh, no, it's not fungi. What's fungi?
Cornmeal festival.
Cornmeal.
Festival di Fungi.
Yeah, so they had a festival where the youth had to make a business out of that local food of Curacao. And it got a lot of coverage in the media. So we try to do those things, and the pitch competition, debating competition, and every time. For example, this year, a bank, a development bank approached us, and maybe this is also something you can take. Development bank approached us and says, okay, I hear you have Global Entrepreneurship Week, so when is that? Because we want to organize a global run, and we're going to do it healthy and everything, and we're going to connect it also to the SDGs. So this year, you're going to get a global run in Curacao. I hope it's big, that a lot of people participate, but then you get exposure because they use then your banner, the T-shirt you mentioned. So maybe there's something also takeaway for others. So that's my part.
Yeah.
That's a great.
And in closing, I was late because I passed my Catherine, so I did my Catherine. Please do your rounds.
Thank you.
So understanding that, you know, we talk about engaging other businesses, not just the entrepreneurs, right? Talking about how we engage people that are not yet entrepreneurs or provide services. So one of the things, and I'll share that this is what they do in Germany, is they get all of the organizations that are like support services, lawyers, doctors, lawyers and accountants and things that startups are going to need. And they ask them if they would do office hours during Global Entrepreneurship Week. The only stipulation is they cannot charge people during GEW, but it helps these tangential businesses recruit, show their expertise. It gives them content for Global Entrepreneurship Week, and it really forges the community to remember that it takes all of these different people to support an entrepreneur. So one of the things that we talked about when I was consulting at the Kauffman Foundation, they had the Amazon HQ2, right? And over 200 communities wanted to vie for the next Amazon headquarters. And the Kauffman Foundation said, you know, companies like Amazon, they are net zero when it comes to job creation. It's actually the entrepreneurs that create new jobs, right? So we all know this working in entrepreneurship. Understanding that in the United States in a given month, out of 1,000 people, probably 3 will try entrepreneurship. There is a job for the 997. The job of the 997 is to support these 3 entrepreneurs. So maybe they can navigate that valley of death from ideation to revenue. Maybe next month, instead of half of the businesses failing, now you have 2 out of 3 successful. But also understand that Global Entrepreneurship Week is for those 997 people, not just for the 3. So that's the engagement that we want to share. So it's an opportunity to expand. I know that we're going to wrap up and send you on your way. I think Mark has made an executive decision about these cards.
Sure. So we're going to, as I mentioned earlier, we'll spotlight this during Global Entrepreneurship Week. And Jonathan kind of made the cheeky offer of if anybody wants to make a commitment now and say that you'll feature it, you'll do something with it during GW, come talk to one of us and we'll give you a free deck. You don't have to buy it. We'll do that. We'll honor that comment. And so if you do feel like, you know what, we'll make this no bad ideas part of this. Just come on up.
So you're a GEW host.
We'll get a photo of you with the deck. We'll get a photo of you with the deck, and then we'll make an announcement that you're going to push it out as part of your campaign. So I think I don't know how many we have here, but if you're a GW host, come on up and get a photo taken with either Cecilia or Gary.